Iranian missile strike on 2 Iraqi bases housing U.S. troops. Will the president say what's next?
We're waiting for the president. Of course, you'll see it live here. Let's bring in retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton, who once served as a deputy training director at the NSA. David Sanger, also our national security correspondent for the New York Times, is back with us as we wait for the president. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here. Colonel, let me just begin with you and ask what you hope to hear from the president this morning. At least the reporting from a senior administration official is sort of a moment of pause and what sounds like an indication of a de-escalatory approach.
Well, Poppy, I think the idea of a de-escalatory approach is a really good idea. And if the president takes up this opportunity to ratchet down tensions, that is something that I'm waiting to hear. We don't want the country to be embarrassed by what's going on, but we do want a way forward in which there is no real threat of a big war, big conflagration with Iran.
David Sanger, the president has repeatedly promised to end the endless wars in the Middle East, and yet he has taken a step with this killing of Soleimani that previous Democratic and Republican administrations did not take, Bush and Obama, because they thought the consequences would be too great. And by the way, he sent thousands more troops to the Middle East. We'll just put it up on the screen. 2,800 troops after the killing there, 750 troops prior after the embassy protests, 1,800 to Saudi Arabia. That's more than 5,000 troops in just the last couple of months here. He seems to be the move's running counter to his messaging.
It sure does, and that doesn't even count the additional 14,000 or so in Saudi Arabia, which are fundamentally to contain Iran. Consistency has never been the strong point of this administration when they're discussing strategy. And when the president made the decision to pull us out of Syria, where we had a tiny number of troops by comparison, 500 or 600, he said it was because he had to end the endless wars and wouldn't send in more. When you hear the administration now talk about the strategy that we heard Secretary Pompeo describe, which of course was confront and contain, the lesson of the Cold War is containment is labor intensive, right? And the president's got to go realize that now. I suspect that in the talk, the speech that we hear in a little while, you're going to hear a lot of threats from the president about what he will do if Americans die, if there are more attacks, and so forth. But the trick is to look for the small opening. Diplomacy, outreach to Iran has not been their strong point, to say the least, but we have seen moments where the president has said that he's open to talk to Iran without precondition and actually tried to set up a phone call once.
Colonel, an official of the State Department telling our reporters, Jim, among them, that, the major question now is do Iranian proxies follow suit? And if history's taught us anything with Iran, it's that their response can last for years, and it can be on soft, unsuspecting targets like Buenos Aires, et cetera. So Americans waking up this morning, should they think, okay, Iran's responded, this is it for now?
Not at all. This is really one of the most dangerous times because, with the one hand, you'll have Iran doing something officially which may seem very conciliatory. With the other hand, you'll have, from Jim's book, The Shadow War, you will have things happening in the shadows that are really important and perhaps more consequential than what's actually happening in something that we can actually see. So this is a very dangerous time. We have to be prepared for all the different things that can happen. And the proxies that you mentioned, Poppy, they are the ones that provide plausible deniability to the Iranians.
Yeah. And delay possible is it, David Sanger? Iran waited, you talk about this in your book, speaking of books, waited